Enjoy these adorable cats on their first date. Waiters/waitresses of Reddit, what's the most awkward first date you had to witness firsthand? I worked at a bar where like 50% of our business was from Tinder dates. This one time, two guys came in separately and sat at different tables by themselves along the same wall. They were both facing the door and clearly waiting for dates. Eventually a woman comes in, walks up to the closest guy, sits down and they start chatting. They start ordering drinks. After 5 minutes, the other guy, who is still waiting by himself, gets up and walks over to the couple. He says hi to the girl and is like, aren't you so and so? I'm so and so, we were supposed to be meeting. She was clearly flustered. Lots of awkward laughter, and she gets up and goes with the other guy to the other table. Couple minutes later the other woman shows up and sits with first guy and he tells her all about it. Lol. The date I saw started off great. I was playing in a band at a small club. There were about 30 people in the club. A couple who had been sitting close together in a corner booth disappeared together into one of the bathrooms. In between songs, when it was quiet in the club, the bartender yells, "They better not be in there ducking on my sink." The whole place turns and stares at the bathroom door, and as we're staring, the couple emerges, smiling at first. Then they look around, see everybody staring at them, and their faces turn a deep color of shame. They quickly paid their bill and left. I legit saw the guy try to roofie the girl, like not even trying to be hidden about it. He did it right in front of me. The girl went to the bathroom, and I was cleaning the table next to them. I saw him take the powder out and slip it inside the drink. Another thing too, it was a pizza place. Who tries to roofie someone in a pizza place? Did you let the girl know? Yeah, I let the girl know, and then I called the cops. He was arrested. The guy's card declines. I didn't want to embarrass him, so I waved him over near the credit card machine, so it would look like he needed to go to the bathroom. He told me to try it again, and I assumed he was going to move money over on his app. He went back to his date. Card declines again. The machine prints a receipt that states the reason for decline. Insufficient funds. I keep trying 4 more times. I go over to the table and say I'm having an issue with the card. Might be our machine. Do you have another? I walk away with the new card and it declines. I wave him over. He gets up angrily and I'm guessing now the date has caught on. He proceeds to berate me saying that it must be our machines because he knows he has money. He starts making fun of me, questioning if I know what I'm doing. He is doing this in front of his date, I'm guessing to save face. Gives me another card. Declined. The date pays. Not a first date, but very awkward. Guy comes in with an escort and drops a good amount of money on booze at the bar. Then she leaves a few hours later, and he informs us that his wife is on her way to meet him for dinner and tips us an extra $200 to keep our mouths shut. Keeping it classy, we had a regular that would have drinks and appetizers with his girlfriend. She'd leave and his wife and kids would meet him for dinner. Not a first date, but when I first started bartending I had a woman who was very obviously stood up. She got there, ordered a drink, and would look around every once in a while. I saw her use her phone a couple times and her mood just got sadder until she finally put her phone upside down on the bar and ordered food an hour later. I wiped what I could off her bill, then paid the rest myself. Told her it was on the house. In my career it's happened 2 more times, once with another woman and once with a guy. I did the same thing. Nothing sucks more than eating alone and defeated. There was guy who would use the place I worked at as his go-to. Every time it's a different girl, and every time it ends with angry, he'd butter them up and brag about himself and talks about how he is such a gentleman for treating them to classy place, and as gratitude they should let him duck them. Every time the date walks away and we have to deal with a horny hole who tries to get either pity sass or pity dessert from the female staff. At my place we had the opposite. A young in shape really handsome dude from Spain would be in 3 to 4 times a week with a new older woman. The women would be buying him everything and basically swooning over him. He'd always walk up to pay with a little smirk while she would be paying for everything. He did this for years. Not a waiter, but a girl I met on a dating app a couple years back told me this guy, who she also met on said dating app, set a date at this weird unknown ghetto bar in our town. And while the place seemed bad, The guy seemed cool, so she ended up going. She gets there early and sits down at the table. Guy isn't there yet. She notices there are 2 other girls, also alone and on their phone, sitting separately. As the time goes on, more and more single girls start walking in and sitting alone. At this point, the guy's late by 15 minutes. After 30 minutes, she stands up and asks one of the girls, "Sorry, are you waiting for Alex?" The girl surprisingly says yeah. Another one must have heard the conversation, because she stood up and said, "Hey, I'm also waiting for Alex." Turns out Alex had managed to invite 12 girls at the same bar at the same time, clearly as a prank. They ended up all sitting together and chatting and having drinks. Apparently it was a great night and most of them kept in touch. 3 of them even went on vacation together in Europe. I'll always wonder if Alex, or whatever his real name was there to notice it all, or knows how his prank ended up turning. Maybe Alex was one of the girls, and she just wanted some girlfriends. Worked at a pub connected to a brewery in college. Dude comes in with a stunning woman. I mean, she's absolutely gorgeous. Whole time they're sitting at the end of the bar, and you can hear the guy talking about how he has a room for them next door at the hotel in downtown. So they decide to go to the brewery next door. Gonna put a little dine and dash. They got over there and didn't realize we are on the same system. So he orders a couple of beers, and the bartender on the brewery side asks if he wants to add it to his tab. He looks over confused and says, "What tab? I've never been here." She prints off the restaurant bill plus his brewery tab. It's like $80 or so. He just blankly stares at the poor bartender, flies off the handle. The girl he was with ended up paying for it. They walked across the street and to the hotel. He has already invited her up. She stalls until her Uber gets there and then just dipped out. Kinda funny, kinda awkward, but that's what you get for dine and dash. I worked as a barista at a coffee shop with a dishwashing sink that brought you face to face with whoever was sitting at the coffee bar across from you. For some reason, so many people chose this spot for their first dates, so I would have to wash dishes and pretend I wasn't literally on the date with them. One time a person I knew was on their first date with someone and chose that cursed seat across for the dishwashing sink. Because we knew each other, we chatted a little bit, and then as if a partition raised between us, they began their date, but I still had dishes to do. So ducking uncomfortable. Don't break eye contact for the entire time they sit there while you are washing dishes. I had these 2 people that were there on a first date. After the appetizers, this poor man got the shuts and was going back and forth to the bathroom all night. There was only a few other people in the restaurant at the time, so it was noticeable, and they were chuckling every time he got up. I honestly felt so bad for the guy. What the hell did you feed him? Sugar-free Haribo gummy bears. I was the one on the first date. Went to a bar with this guy. Our waitress came up and immediately recognized him, was super friendly, took our orders and left. While she was gone, he told me they used to date. The rest of the night they openly flirted with each other. There was no second date. The guy starts talking about how nice it is in the modern day that you can just date without labels. Woman, in suspiciously chipper voice, responds that sometimes labels are really helpful in defining the boundaries of the relationship. Man, very upbeat, replies that sometimes it's nice just to enjoy your time with someone without having to define anything. It was so hard to listen to. Once, as a high school teenager, while waiting tables at a now defunct Mexican restaurant chain, think Applebee's, but tacos, a first date came in. They seemed unable to converse. It was super awkward. Painful to watch. Well, at one point the woman asked for a refill of her tea. I dutifully went and got the pitcher and came back to fill her glass. While pouring, I literally dropped the entire pitcher, a full gallon, of sweet, sticky tea directly onto her. It went down her shirt, her skirt. It was everywhere. She was completely and utterly soaked. My newly blossoming career as a server flashed before my incredibly stoned eyes. I apologized profusely. I brought her out like 4,000 napkins. Her date was dumbfounded and probably thinking, didn't think this could get worse, but here we are. Well, she cleaned up the best she could, and they ate their meals. And, magically, they began talking. They started looking at each other like a new couple looks at each other. They laughed. They enjoyed their shutty food. She dried out. They left the restaurant an hour later, with her arm in his. They gave me the biggest tip I had ever gotten. I got $20 on a $20 bill in 1996. Somehow, my idiotic blunder turned the worst first date ever into the best first date ever. I like to imagine them now as happily married, parents of 7 lovely children, who loved telling the story of the moron who poured an entire gallon of tea on her 25 years ago.